Hello, and welcome to the Chief and Assistant Chief online question and answer session for the June 21st, 2022 Democratic Party primary election. We're very excited to have all of you with us, and I want to remind you that we have some members of our electoral board that may join us today, including our chair, Ambassador Christopher Hensel, Vice Chair, Bettina Lawton, Secretary of the Electoral Board, the Honorable Kate Hanley. We have a new general registrar this year, Eric Spicer, who you may be very familiar with as he was our election manager for the past 5 years. We have our deputy registrar, Cheryl Jones, who you may also be familiar with as the previous assistant registrar for absentee voting. We're also joined by many of our office staff to answer your questions because we know you'll have some tough questions for us. And those include the clerk to the electoral board and polling place liaison, Beth Methvessel, IT manager, Cord Whitehouse, IT security and network analyst, George Panagakos, the voting equipment and logistics manager, Tyrone Allen, election inventory and supply manager, Kay Garrison, voter registration supervisor, Bushra Ardalan, our new absentee manager, Sean Stewart, satellite manager, Helen Tchaikovsky, the assistant satellite manager, Florence Brown, our HR manager, Blanca Arcienega Maldonado, special assistant and FOIA specialist, Patricia Ferguson, and our language specialist, Norma Rengel. We also have some folks from our election officer team, including me. I'm Robbie, and I serve as the election officer manager. Our election officer coordinator, Alina Selnick Escobar. Our election officer specialist for chiefs, Abigail Peters. And 2 members of our election officer staff, Jean Fauble, who's also a trainer, and V. Wen. And of course, we're so happy to be joined by all of you, our wonderful chiefs and assistant chiefs, without whom we could not conduct this election. Now, I want to remind you that if you have any specific questions about your individual precinct or your individual polling place, you're always welcome to contact us at electionofficers@fairfaxcounty.gov or call us at 703-324-4735. You can also see some of the other contact information and links for other aspects of our elections office, and we'll present this information again at the end of the session. So let's go into an overview of some things that we want to make sure you're aware of that may have been updated since the chief's briefing, or just a general reminder for this election. So first off, we of course want to remind you that this election that's coming up next week is a Democratic Party primary that is only in the 8th Congressional District, which is about 82 precincts or 1/3 of the county. And it only has one contest for US House of Representatives. Of course, in Virginia, we don't register voters by party. So any qualified voter may vote in this primary, and you should never ask a voter for their party affiliation. But you should also remind your officers to let voters know that they're voting in a Democratic primary, so you avoid the situation of fleeing voters, individuals who get checked in thinking they might be casting a primary ballot for a different party and don't realize it until they're actually looking at the ballot. Now, it's so important to review your chief's notebook. All of our chiefs have already picked up their supplies and they received a printed copy of the notebook, and all of our assistant chiefs have been emailed a PDF copy of the chief's notebook. There are some significant updates in this election. We've tried to make things simpler and clearer. But one change that we're excited about is we did add a table of contents at the beginning that goes through every item in every section of the notebook. And if you're looking at the PDF version of the chief's notebook, all of those items in the table of contents are clickable. So you can click on anything and it will jump you to just the right page. Now, there are some updates that we want to make sure you're aware of. First, we are no longer using the report of death of voter form. Because we packed all of our materials to give to you in the gray carts and your black kits a while back, this form may still be included in your supplies, but you should no longer plan to use this form on election day. And we will provide additional instructions about what you should be doing instead in the sheriff's envelope that will be delivered to all chiefs. And we will email you instructions later this weekend as well. But we just want to let you know this form is no longer being used. On a similar note, we have one form that's been significantly updated, and that is the precinct results notice. You may recall during the chief's briefing that we mentioned that there would be a form, the precinct results notice, to which you would attach tapes from the DS200 and then post that on the door of the polling place. We've since updated the procedures for that, And what you will now do instead is complete this version of the form, where you'll be writing in some different numbers, including the total number of voters checked in, the total curbside voters, the total counted ballots on the DS200, and the provisional numbers, as well as the votes for each candidate. And then you'll take that and you'll post that on the door of the polling place building. We think this will be a little bit simpler and easier, and it's more in line with what we've done in the past. If you recall the call sheet that we used to have, where you called in the numbers based on that, this kind of looks like that, but you won't need to call in the numbers anymore. We'll also have a backup copy of this form that we're going to ask the chiefs to complete and bring with them with their other supplies on election night. So that way you'll have one that you post at the door and one that gets returned with the chief. You will have an extra set of tapes from your DS200, and you'll just return those in the number 2 blue pouch. But as a reminder, everything we're going over today that might be different from the briefing or from your notebook, we will cover in the sheriff's envelope. We'll have a last minute memo that clarifies these procedures and instructions. So it will all be written down for you. Let's go into a few things about your site setup. Now, earlier this week, we sent all chiefs and assistant chiefs an email reminding you that for FCPS facilities, those are schools, which are about 2/3 of the polling places being used in this election, they have to make a block of time available to you from 4:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. to do setup on Monday. We're actually paying for this arrangement. We're paying for someone from the schools to be available, even though it's a county holiday on that day. Pardon me, a federal holiday on that day now. Now, we want to make sure you understand it's your option whether to avail yourself of that time. If, for example, you're not able to go at that time to do your setup, we understand, and you can do your setup at a different time, whether perhaps today, the Friday before the election, or just on election morning. But the schools must make that Monday time available to you, at least as an option. Now, if your polling place is not at a school, then you need to set up at a mutually agreed date and time, which will likely be the date and time listed on the polling place info sheet that was already provided to you. Let's talk a little bit about COVID safety measures. We're providing every precinct with 4 acrylic sneeze guards. And of those, you must set up at least one at the check-in table and at least one at the ballot table. The extra sneeze guards can be set up at the chief's discretion. So for example, you may want to place one at the chief's table when you're assisting non-routine voters. For the other PPE supplies that we've provided you, such as face masks or hand sanitizer, you should make those available to election officers and voters, but those individuals are not required to use those if they don't want to. Let's talk a little bit about the poll pads and the new provisional pad. Now, first, we've received some questions about the poll pad update process, and we want to be clear that we are providing written instructions for exactly what you need to do. If you are doing your setup on Monday, the day before the election, you're going to use the guide on the left. That's the guide that's going to be called the poll pad update wireless guide. If you're doing your poll pad update on Tuesday morning, election morning, you use the guide on the right, and it's called poll pad update iSync. So we're going to give you both of these guides in the sheriff's envelope. I think we actually already gave you the one on the left during the chief supply pickup, but we're going to give you another one in the sheriff's envelope just to be safe. But you have these 2 guides. And I want to be clear that you'll be using one or the other, depending on when you do your setup. We've also provided you a 3rd guide. This is for your provisional pad. As a reminder, this is a separate iPad that will be used for a specific function and will not be used for checking in voters. You don't need to update the voter file on this device because it doesn't have a voter file on it. But there are some basic preliminary steps you need to do on this device. So whether you do your setup on Monday or Tuesday of your poll pads, at whatever time you do it, you'll also want to use this guide to update your one additional provisional pad. And all 3 of those guides will be in the sheriff's envelope. So let's just recap for a moment, because I know that can be a little bit confusing. You're going to receive 3 handouts, one that talks about how to update your poll pads wirelessly, and you would use that for setup on Monday. You'll receive a separate guide about how to update your poll pads with an iSync drive, and you would only use that if you're doing a Tuesday setup. And you'll receive a handout about how to set up your provisional pad, which you'll use regardless of whether you're doing Monday or Tuesday setup. All 3 of these guides were emailed to chiefs and assistant chiefs earlier this week. They're all currently posted on our training website. And again, printouts will be delivered in the sheriff's envelope. And we can't say this enough. So if you're doing setup on Monday, you're going to do your poll pad update wirelessly. And we've heard from some of you, you've been asking, is there a certain time you have to wait until? No, you can do it any time on Monday. I think the earliest we've heard is a precinct is setting up at 9 a.m. on Monday. That's fine. You can update your poll pads wirelessly that time on Monday. And of course, you would also set up your provisional pad at that time. And then just call us if you have any issues. If for some reason the wireless update does not work, if you don't have good coverage in the building or there's something else going on, we have backup measures. You may need to go and use the iSync drive we've provided. We hope not, but you might need to. But first, call us and we'll walk you through the backup procedures. If you're doing your setup on Tuesday, which is election morning, then you would go straight to updating your poll pads using the iSync drive and associated instructions. The iSync drive is delivered in the sheriff's envelope, so you would need that with you, which you would of course take with you on election morning. And again, call us if you have any issues. Now, I believe there are 5 precincts that are doing setup today on Friday. In that case, you can arrange your voting room, your tables, your voting booths, things like that, but you won't be updating your poll pads. If you're able to go back to the polling place on Monday, you can do it then, or just do it on Tuesday morning. Now, some of you have asked, what do you do if you go to do your site setup and you don't have your sheriff's envelope yet? Will you still be able to do, will this affect your pre-election setup? So no, not necessarily. You need to bring your sheriff's envelope because it relates to the poll pad update, especially if you have any issues. But since we've also emailed you the documents, you should be able to use those as your instructions for what to do. As I said, if the wireless update of the poll pads doesn't work on Monday for any reason, we hope it does, in our testing we expect it will, but we want to be prepared just in case, then that's the point where you would use the iSync drive from the sheriff's envelope. And if you don't have that, contact us because we do have another backup method on Monday. Basically, if you're going to do your site setup on Monday, we hope and are planning for you to have your poll pads fully updated by the time that you leave. And we have backup measures in place for that. Now let's talk a little bit about the additional iPad we provided you, which we're calling the Provisional pad. Remember, one Provisional pad device has been issued to each polling place, but I want to be clear, you're still going to get the same number of check-in poll pads that you would have received otherwise. This doesn't take the place of one of those. So for example, if you usually get 3 poll pads, you're still going to get 3 poll pads, 2 to use at the check-in table, 1 for the chief's use, but you'll also have this additional iPad to use as a provisional pad. The opening screen of it looks different. You can see that picture on the bottom right that shows the background is different than the other devices. And it has only one app on there down at the bottom middle to access the electronic provisional ballot log. And the setup steps you need to do on this device, they're pretty basic, and you can do them before election day or on election morning during opening procedures. Now, you may wonder, why are we using a provisional pad in addition to the paper provisional log? Well, we're doing this as a pilot for this election, and we're hoping that it'll improve some of the procedures, both for you and for us. So for this election, we're asking you to do this concurrently. Enter any provisional voters on the regular paper provisional log form, and then also enter them on the electronic provisional log on the provisional pad device. By doing it this way, we'll get all the information digitally on election night, which will allow us to begin assisting and processing provisional voters much faster the next morning. You may have heard that in Virginia, the law is changing, not for this election, but for the next election, to allow for same-day voter registration. Same-day voter registrations will be handled in a provisional format. So we expect the number of provisional voters to increase significantly in November, and we want to plan and prepare for that. Now, finally, what are the most important changes to remember during setup and closing? So first, whenever you update your poll pads, whether that's on Monday or on election morning on Tuesday, you need to make sure to reseal the poll pad cases with the yellow zip tie seal. And pardon me, I should say you would only do that on Monday, to reseal the poll pad cases with the yellow zip tie seal. Of course, if you are updating your poll pads on Tuesday, you don't need to reseal them because you'll go right into your voting procedures after that. But if you do reseal your cases, then you need to record those seals on the machine certification form, and we've provided a space to do that. Now, at the end of the day, on election day, during your closing procedures, there's a few things we want you to remember. First, Make sure to return each poll pad to the correct case. Look at the number. It'll say something like EPB-0123, and you want to put in the case that says EPB-0123. In addition, these aren't related to poll pads, but these are other closing reminders. The purple pouch that contains 4 USB flash drives from the DS200s should be returned outside of the trip lock security bag. So this is what the collector officers are doing and returning on election night. And last election, we just had a few people that put that purple pouch inside the trip lock security bag. And there are different security regulations regarding the purple pouch and the trip lock bags. So we need those to be returned separately and individually. And finally, my colleague Todd would be remiss with me if I didn't remind you to return all supplies to the proper location in the gray supply cart during closing procedures. We've given you pictures and instructions showing you where each supply gets returned, and we just ask that you follow those instructions. If something goes in the top left or the top right, just put it there. And that helps us a lot after the election with our post-election procedures, but also with providing you properly packed carts for future elections. Next, I'm going to turn over to my colleague, Alina, to take you through some other questions. Alina?
Thanks, Ravi. I'm going to take you through some of the most frequently asked questions, and then we will open it up to all of you to ask your questions live. So if you are thinking of any questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A box, not the chat box, but the Q&A. That makes it a little bit easier for us to see what's coming in, and then we'll get to that next. So let's jump right in. Okay, the first question that I have is about canceling a voter check-in. So the question is, what if a voter checks in and then realizes that they do not want to vote? So sometimes this happens in a primary. The best thing to do is to avoid this problem by having your officers remind the voter what kind of primary it is. So have the greeter remind them, have the check-in officer remind them before they check them in. That'll make it so that you avoid this step. If you do have this situation, you can cancel the voter check-in on the poll pad if the voter's still present and the ballot has not been cast. So if the voter's still present, you would spoil the ballot, just as you would any other spoiled ballot. If they haven't been issued the ballot yet, they just click that accept button and you checked in. Of course, you don't have to issue them a ballot and then spoil it. Just cancel the check-in. But if you have issued them that ballot, go ahead and spoil it. And the very important key piece of this procedure is that you must record this discrepancy on part 4 of the statement of results. Of course, if you check somebody in, spoil the ballot, and then cancel the check-in because the voter's still present, realize they don't want to vote in the Democratic Party primary, you're going to have a number that's off. So we need you to document that in the chief notes, write down the time, the voter name, what the situation was, and how you were able to cancel the check-in. If you need any help with the actual canceling of the check-in, just give us a call. We can walk you through that process. But the important piece to remember is that you must document that on the statement of results. So keep a little note for yourself and in the chief's notes. The next question is about the permanent absentee list. So you might have some voters who insist that they did not request an absentee ballot. What may have happened is that they didn't realize what option they checked when they requested an absentee ballot. So you can now request to either receive a ballot for a single election, or you can be added to what's called the permanent absentee list. We used to have a yearly absentee list. Now there's a permanent absentee list. You basically ask as the voter, I always want to receive my ballot by mail. Somebody might not have realized that they did this. If you have a situation like this, calmly ask the voter if they remember selecting the permanent absentee ballot option when they applied for an absentee ballot. They might not have, that's okay. They can contact the office to find out if they are on that list, and you'll have a form that we send out in the sheriff's envelope that allows the voter to change their selection right then and there. So you can help them out by providing that form and giving them our contact information so they can double check on their status. The next question is about surrendering absentee ballots. So you might have a voter who wants to surrender their absentee ballot without the outer envelope. That's the envelope that the ballot would have been received in via mail. So when we mail those out, it comes in the envelope. If it is in the envelope, they can deposit it in the drop box. If it's not in the envelope, they can surrender it. So the difference there is that if you're depositing an absentee ballot in the drop box, we can't see you. We don't know whose ballot that is. That's why the outer envelope exists. It identifies who the voter was and who's voting that ballot. If a voter has lost that mailer, their dog ate it, it rained, whatever the situation is, they may surrender that ballot. So they'll come in with just the ballot, send them to the chief, and you would surrender that ballot just as same as you would if they have that outer envelope. If you have any questions about that, Sean, our absentee manager, is on the Zoom, so he'll be happy to answer anything about that later on. The next question is about our drop boxes. So this is specific to our co-located precincts, our polling places that house more than one precinct. Co-located chiefs work together to figure out what works best for you. I believe most of our co-located precincts this election are in the same room. So one drop box is probably the best way to go. If you do have a co-located precinct, several precincts and one polling place in different rooms, you may opt to use different drop boxes. That's okay. It's the chief's call. Work together with your co-located precinct to figure out what works best for you. If a single drop box is used, the co-located chiefs can work together to rotate their officers, so both teams can help out with that task. At the end of the night, the collector officers, and remember, the collector officers are not monitoring the box all day. They're responsible for the takedown of the box and securing of the absentee ballots. So when it comes time to that, those are the officers who are responsible for that. So if you set up one or if you set up two, those two officers are going to be the ones to take care of that at the end of the night. So make sure that you work with your other precinct to get the collector officers in the loop as to how many drop boxes there are and what they need to do at the end of the night. Next question about collector officers is what forms they should sign. So of course, because collector officers leave slightly after 7 p.m., they're not going to be helping tally the votes, filling out the SOR, so they should not sign those forms. The only form that they're going to need to sign after closing is the Dropbox form. Once they have that signed, they have the trip block bag with the absentee ballots, the 4 flash drives in the purple pouch, and then the collector, the Dropbox form, the other form that they bring. They are good to go. They do not need to sign the SOR or other closing documents. The other thing that I want to say about that is that collector officers, chiefs, remind them of this. Make sure they sign the during the day forms before they leave. So you might do a final check at the end of the night of who signed the compensation sheet and the form. Double check that your collector officers have in fact done that so that we don't have to call them the next day and make them come all the way to our office. A helpful tip is to write collector officers, or you can abbreviate it to CO, on forms like the SOR and the closing documents, so that when you're counting, you include them in that count. But again, they don't sign those closing forms. I'm gonna go through a couple of other questions about closing procedures. That purple pouch with the 4 flash drives that the collector officers bring back has a seal. It's a zip tie seal that goes on it. The officers that are closing down the DS200 will be responsible for doing that process, and then they can hand it over to the collector officers. That seal number should be recorded in the chief's notes. Write it on that page where you write all of the notes on it. You can put a box around it, circle it, and then you can note the time that the collector officers left and any other pertinent information about your closing procedures. But just make sure you record that seal number on there before they get on their way to the government center. Next question is about the results. Do we still phone in results? No, you don't have to give us a call at the end of the night. We're going to have all the information we need from the DS200 flash drives. So we've been doing a pilot program past couple of elections. We've had great success with the collector officer program, returning the flash drives. So we don't need you to call us. You're going to fill out the forms that Ravi mentioned, and we'll get that information both from the DS200 flash drives and when that form comes back to the office. So no need to call. The person you do need to call is your rover. Please make sure that you as the chief call the rover once you're done. It's not very helpful to the rovers if you give them a call during closing procedures and let them know that you're finishing up. As soon as you're done, just let them know, I'm all done, I'm leaving. That way the rovers can close out their night once all of their precincts have closed down. So make sure you don't forget, write a big note for yourself, assign this task to another officer, tell them to remind you. Last thing you do before you walk out the door is to give them a call, and then we'll know to expect you either at the Fairfax County Government Center or the Mount Vernon Government Center, depending on where you as the chief are returning your supplies. The next question is about the notebook. If you are a chief, you picked up 2 copies of this. Make sure that you give the assistant chief their own copy of the notebook, either before election day at your setup or first thing on election morning. Assistant chiefs, you can start reviewing that notebook. If you haven't already, it's available online at the training website at training.electionofficers.com, and then you'll get your hard copy as soon as you see your chief. Now I'm going to turn it over to Ravi, who has a couple things to share with you all, and then we will get to your questions. So if you have any questions that you've been thinking about throughout this presentation, go ahead and put them in the Q&A. We'll try to answer as many as we can. If we don't get to your question, please send us an email. We'll be more than happy to answer you. So I'm going to turn it over to Ravi and stop sharing this screen. Ravi?
Thanks, Alina. I think our chiefs and assistant chiefs have heard plenty from you and me, so I actually want to turn it over to our other office staff if they have any updates they'd like to share with everyone. So first, let's check with Eric, our general registrar, or Cheryl, our deputy registrar. Would either of you like to say anything to our election officers?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, I was muted. So I don't want to say much because this is more for us to listen, but just thank you. I've been doing this for a long time. Election officers are always at the core of everything we do, especially the chief and assistant chief. So we're going to do everything we can to make things flow well for you. And that's why little things like not posting the tapes, I think that's much better to the new form that we've devised. But again, I just want to thank you very much. And we're open for any questions.
Thank you, Eric. Cheryl, is there anything you'd like to say? I guess not. I see that we are joined by the Secretary of the Electoral Board, Kate Hanley. Kate, is there anything that you want to say to all of our chiefs and assistant chiefs that are joining us for this Zoom?
Nobody should ever ask me to talk and assume. Well, I just want to say thank you to all of you. Thank you for what you do. Our things change every election recently, and so thank you for your hard work and for keeping up with all the new things that go on. Have a good day on Tuesday.
Thank you very much, Kate. We're joined by our clerk to the Electoral Board and polling place liaison, Beth Methvessel. Beth, is there anything you want to share with the election officers, especially as it relates to their polling places or other issues that they may have?
I think that we've been preemptively dealing with any issues that are coming up at polling places due to the holiday on Monday. However, if you all encounter any difficulty, please let us know right away. As Robbie said, most of the polling places for this election are in schools, and the school must make available that 4-hour time frame. So, and as I said before, I've pretty much dealt with each issue that has come up, but I just want to emphasize that please don't hesitate to reach out if you encounter any difficulty accessing the school on Monday. And have a great Tuesday.
Great, thank you, Beth. Next, let's move over to our IT team. So we have Cord Whitehouse, who's our new IT manager this year, and George Panagakos, who was just promoted to being the IT security network analyst. Cord and George, do you have any updates for our election officers, perhaps as it relates to their poll pad update process?
Hi, Ravi. Yeah, I'll jump in first. So yeah, I'm Cord Whitehouse, new IT manager. I just love to echo everybody else's sentiments that I'm very appreciative of everything that you guys do as election officers. I'm very excited. This will be my first election with Fairfax County. So it's an exciting time for me. And I think, Ravi and Alina stole all my thunder with the great guides that they've put out on poll pads and the great instruction that they've given you. Whether you're doing your setup on Monday or Tuesday for the poll pads, the guides are going to walk you through it. But if you do have questions, we're going to be here to give you the support that you need. At this point, I'll hand it over to George if he had anything he wanted to elaborate. But like I said, I think the guides do a great job of telling you what you need to know.
George, would you like to add anything?
Hello, this is George. I would also like to echo the sentiments from our GR and staff. Thank you all for everything you do and the flexibility that you provide to the position and all the changes. I have nothing major to add. I look forward to working with you on Monday and providing support.
Thank you, George. Next, let's move over to our voting equipment and supply team. So we have Tyrone Allen, our voting equipment and logistics manager, and Kate Garrison, our inventory and supply manager. Do either of you have updates that you'd like to share with our officers?
No updates, Tyrone Allen, voter equipment manager. No updates that you haven't heard already. Thank you very much for your service. And we encourage you, if there are any inkling of problems with the machines, call us at Tech Command. We'll walk you through the process. If not, we'll have a rover there on site to help you with whatever the situation warrants. Just give us a call at Tech Command. We're there waiting.
Thank you very much, Tyrone. I know your team and you have been very hard at work in making sure everything's been delivered to the precincts, it's ready to go. So I think the Chiefs will be in great position. Kay, is there anything you'd like to talk to our election officers, and specifically our chiefs and assistant chiefs, about? All right, we'll move on to Bushra, Sean, Helen, and Flo. So first, let's start with Bushra, who is the supervisor of voter registration. Bushra, is there anything you want to update our chiefs and assistant chiefs about?
Hi, everybody. I just want to thank you, everybody, for all hard work that you do. And I just want to let you know we are here starting morning on Tuesday. Please give us a call if you need a question. If you cannot find a voter, we will be here. If you have a question about eligibility, don't hesitate to call us. All Office of Election, Voter Registration, Absentee will be here to support you on Election Day. And thank you.
Thank you, Bushra. And I'm not sure our chiefs and assistant chiefs know, but we actually have staff in the office as early as 4 a.m. on Election Day. So feel free to call or email us if you do have any questions. Next, let's move to Sean, who is our new absentee manager. Sean, is there anything you want to update our chiefs about?
Hey, thank you, Ravi, and good afternoon, everyone. I would like to register my displeasure with being placed after Bushra in the lineup. That's not fair to me in any way. But to all our chiefs and assistant chiefs, hello, my name is Sean Stewart. I am the new assistant registrar for absentee voting. It'd be nice to see all your faces instead of you having to see me. I know the absentee division usually hidden here at the office, but know that we are here working hard and hope to support any operations that we can for Election Day, and hoping that'll be a great Tuesday. We're approaching about 5,500 ballots returned via mail and Dropbox. That represents almost 50% of our original mail out for this election, being only in the 8th congressional district. We knew it would be smaller, but we have seen a bit of a drop off in mail the last week or two. So we're hoping for some brisk business for your collector officers and those monitoring the Dropbox on Tuesday. Look forward to getting some more of those ballots back. So let's hope that happens. Look forward to answering questions, and again, best wishes for a great Election Day.
Thank you very much, Sean. And I should say, Sean's position title may be new, but he's been with our absentee division for some time, and they're in great hands. Let's move over to our satellite voting team, the folks that deal with early voting. Helen and Florence, would you like to share anything with our chiefs?
Right, I'll speak for Florence. I am the assistant registrar for early voting satellites. We have 6 locations open. The first one was
Kaylin, sorry about interrupting. Can you put your microphone? Thank you.
I'm sorry. I will start again. I am Helen Tchaikovsky. I am the assistant registrar for early voting satellites. I will speak for myself and Flo, who is my assistant. We have been open for 45 days at the government center, and we have a total of 6 locations now open. The other 5 opened for a week starting June 11th, and they will finish tomorrow, June 18th. I have to say it has not been that busy. We've only had about 1,300 voters so far, but I expect that usually for this kind of election, it'll be busier on Saturday. One interesting note that we have seen is that a lot of people come and take their mailed ballots and put them in the Dropbox. So the Dropboxes have been very active. But I wish you all a good election.
Thank you very much, Helen. Let's move to our final 3 folks. So we have Blanca, Pat, and Norma. Blanca is our HR manager. Would you have any updates to share with our election officers?
Hi, I don't have any updates. I just want to say that I am very proud to work with all of you, and I appreciate all the difference that you are making in our county. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Blanca. And I wish I was where your virtual background is. That looks like a lot more fun than our office. Let's see. Pat Ferguson, Special Assistant and FOIA Specialist. Do you have any updates for Chiefs?
Hello, everyone. I'm Pat Ferguson, and I just wanted to let you know that we have all pretty much all served at these precincts. So we are very empathetic, and we're here to help you on election day absolutely any way we can. Just touching on the provisional ballots, please make sure that the precinct is indicated on that right-hand corner. Sometimes that goes missing, and it's a good way for us to keep these provisional ballots, together. Please make sure that you sign those envelopes as well. Sometimes we have missing signatures, and make sure that any additional paperwork or story that needs to be told is told on the outside of the envelope, not placed inside. Inside does not get opened until the provisional ballot is approved, so we will not be able to see anything to support their claim. Other than that, good luck, and we really appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
I think we all appreciate what you do for our office, Pat, because you have a very hard task with the number of FOIA requests and other things that have been coming up lately. Let's move on finally to Norma. Norma, do you have any updates for the Chiefs?
No, so far I think we are ready for election day, and I just wish everybody a good and easy election.
I hope for that too. Thank you very much, Norma. All right, with that, I think we've got all the office staff. I don't think I missed anyone, but if I did, feel free to chime in if anyone else has any updates to share with the Chiefs and Assistant Chiefs. But otherwise, we have Jean and V, who have been reviewing all the questions that you all have submitted using the Q&A feature in Zoom. Looks like we've got 30 questions already, so we're going to work our way through them. And as you ask your questions, we'll take a look and see who the most appropriate staff member is to answer them. Since we do have the experts here with us, the folks that deal with voter registration and absentee voting and early voting and supplies and voting equipment, we'll direct those questions to them if they're the best person to answer it. All right, Jean and V, what do we have?
Thanks, Ravi. So our first question, I think Abigail will be able to answer. We have a few chiefs who are concerned that they can't find any of their EOs to help them set up. What should they do?
Hi, everybody. I'm Abigail. I've spoken to most of you more than a couple of times in the last couple of weeks. I have heard this from a number of chiefs. I know it's really difficult, especially as people have working lives and family lives and don't always have the opportunity to take additional time off on Mondays. If you want to contact me at electionofficers@fairfaxcounty.gov and let me know if you're experiencing significant difficulty convincing your people to show up, I may be able to exert a little bit of pressure or find some other solution that would get you the additional hands-on help that you need. But you should also reach out to your rover and let them know. It's always good that the rovers understand the position that you feel you're in. They're your first line of support. We're always here as well. And I look forward to helping all of you solve some of these very frustrating problems.
Thank you, Abigail. And I should say, it's a great point about the rovers. They are there to help support you, not to supervise you, but to support you with anything you may need. So if there's anything that we can do in the office to support you, we're happy to do that, but your rovers can as well.
Okay, just to say that we're answering questions, not just that you're submitting now in the live Q&A, but we received some questions previously when you registered for the webinar and that you sent to us by email. So I'm going to also file some of the questions we received previously. And I think Abigail might be able to answer these. They follow on to election officers performing their duties and such, and they're kind of related. The first is, in view of the smaller teams that are now assigned to a number of precincts, can we ask our check-in officers to also simultaneously serve as the ballot officers? And a related question is, we have a small group of 5 with 2 collector officers leaving. How long do you expect closing to take for the 3 of us that are left?
Gene, I think I can take that one. So in this election, each precinct has been assigned anywhere from 5 to 7 election officers. And that's what you're going to have throughout the entire day. And we think that's the right amount for an election of this size, especially with the turnout that we think we're going to see. For example, in the primary that we had a year ago, which was very comparable, turnout in person at the polling places on election day was about 8%. So we think it's going to be around that number or possibly lower. That said, we realize it'll be a challenge that you'll have 2 collector officers leaving during closing procedures, and you'll be down those 2. So in some precincts, you'll have either 3, 4, or 5 officers left, including the chief and assistant chief. What you should do is do your best to both prioritize your closing tasks, but also delegate your tasks to those officers that are present. It may take a little bit longer than it has been in the past, but we've simplified some of the procedures to make it to offset that. So for example, we're no longer asking to call in the results. So that either took the chief or another officer some time to call in and wait to have that process. That goes away now. There are other things as well, similar to that, that we think you'll find in the closing section of the chief's notebook that have become a little bit shorter or simpler. So let us know if you have any concerns. If we do have extra officers, we might be able to assign you someone, but otherwise we're confident in your ability to close effectively with the officers that you do have. And we'll take a look, we'll see and review your feedback after this election and see and assess for future elections what we might need to do.
Okay, next question. I think George or Cord could answer about poll pads. Do poll pads need to remain on at the end of the day?
Hello, this is George. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you, George.
All right, and yeah, so for this election, we will have the poll pads left on at the end of the day. And as they are being packed up, they'll remain on. So what you'll want to do is just leave it so that the screen of the poll pad app is on the home screen of the poll pad app, and then just pack it away that way.
I have a question that I think two related questions that I think Sean might be able to answer in the Q&A. Should the election officer observing the drop box be encouraged or discouraged from signing as a witness for someone or reminding voters of a need for a witness? And related question, if someone had selected the permanent absentee option, does that show up on their voter record so that we can tell them what is going on?
All right, Gene, a couple of great questions there. Let's take the softball first with the permanent absentee question. In terms of what you're going to see on the poll pad, my understanding, and Ravi or Alina should jump in on this, but you're going to see the AB status specifically, which is not going to delineate perm or anything else. If an absentee ballot is out there, obviously issued or anything else like that. Now in their voter record itself in Veris, so obviously if you're speaking to somebody in the office in the absentee division or in voter registration, that information would be available so that we can provide an update on that and help the voter understanding what they've selected and what exactly that provides for them going forward. If we need some clarification on that, but I think that's the most concise answer on that. Secondly, when it comes to witness signatures on the envelopes themselves, again, I've seen the standard guidance. I know that was out in the chief's briefing. I would say certainly when it comes to a reminder or encouraging someone dropping in the drop box, I mean, I would certainly ask if Ravi would agree. Absolutely, collector officers can remind a voter to make sure everything's filled out on their statement of absentee voter. That's going to be on the front of that envelope where they fill in their name, their voter registration address, their signature, the witness signature. Absolutely, it can be a friendly reminder to let them know that it should all be filled out, and that ensures, rather, I should say, that we can count that absentee ballot. The next question is easy to answer in the sense that it's a hard no. Those election officers that are serving as collector officers or in any other capacity should not sign as a witness on an absentee voter statement. The code specifically indicates that officers should only be signing materials presented to them or utilization for election day. They should not sign as a witness on an absentee ballot. Again, just to be clear, the voter can be encouraged to find anyone else. The code simply envisions that the witness is anyone over the age of 18. It can be a spouse, can be a family member, it can be anybody who would be able to affirm the information that's there, as long as the person is not their employer or their labor representative. So just to be clear, collector officers should not sign the witness statement.
And there was previously submitted a related question. What should the Dropbox monitor do if somebody brings in their absentee ballot without the envelope and they want to drop just that ballot itself into the Dropbox?
Well, I would love to obviously encourage them to have an opportunity. I mean, we can provide envelopes or something else, but that takes some logistics. The easiest thing for the voter to do at that time would be to enter the polling place, surrender the ballot, and vote at that time. I mean, that ensures that they know everything's taken care of. They're able to vote the exact ballot. They're able to insert it into the DS200, and that they know it's been taken care of. Information, beyond them providing it on another envelope could be problematic. That we have to ensure that the statement is on there. But certainly I'm happy to touch base with the EO team if provisioning some sort of additional envelopes is something we'd like to look into. I can certainly make that happen.
Okay, thanks, Sean. So I think our next question will go to Kay. So Kay, someone's asking, do you want us to return the guides? And if so, where should we put them? The blue pouch or the black kit?
I think Kay might be having some technical difficulties. We can't quite hear her. But that is up to you. You can either hold on to the guides if you want to, or you may return them in the black kit if you don't need them.
This is a question for either Cord or George. Someone asked, what are the technical instructions for how you actually power off the poll pad and provisional pad?
Hello. So let's see. So we have some great pre-election procedure guides and videos available for you. But for this process, generally speaking, you'll locate the power button on the device. It's on the left side of the poll pad, and you'll press it down and slide the power to turn the device off. And then to turn it back on, you'll press that power button down and hold it until you see the Apple logo on the screen.
Okay, thanks, George. So this next question, I think maybe Tyrone, you can answer it. During Tuesday night closing, are the poll pad cases to be sealed?
The poll, you can hear me okay? The poll pad cases, once the poll pad is placed in the case still on, just needs to be locked up and sent back in with the chief. That's bringing back his black kit, poll pads, and the ballots.
Thanks, Tyrone. I think I see that Kay's audio is now working. Kay, is there anything you wanted to share about the return of the documents? Maybe not. We'll go to our next question.
I think she left.
So again, this is a technical question. If we update poll pads on Monday and turn them off, is there anything specific that we need to watch for when we power them back up on Tuesday morning?
That's a good question. I think Cord or George, is there anything special about that process? About they've updated their poll pads on Monday, done everything correctly, power them off. Is there anything special they need to double check on Tuesday morning?
Nothing in particular. If you've gone through the full process on Monday and you've checked all the numbers of the precinct count and the countywide count, everything that we've detailed for you guys to check out, you can take a look over that one more time. But outside of that, there shouldn't be anything in particular.
Okay, thanks, George. So we've actually been getting a lot of questions about the ballots this time. I know last year or last election, the ballots were torn off. However, this election, are we counting the ballots or are they loose?
Sure, I can take that question, V. Yes, so the ballots are, as they were before last election, shrink wrapped in packs of 100. You will need to count them. We went over this in the briefing. There's two things that you need to do with the ballot. So the first is the ballot receipt. You don't need to open the packs to do this. So if my ballot receipt says that I have 600 ballots, I would double check that I do in fact have received 6 packs of the shrink wrap ballots. I know that there's 100 ballots in each. So I would say, sign that. Yes, there are 600. And then as you open them, we want to double check those numbers. That's going to be at the bottom of the same sheet that you're going to be checking the check-ins and the DS200. We moved that to all be one long sheet. And again, that's in the briefing and that is in your chief's notebook. So you can double check that. But when you open the ballot packs, you will again need to count those ballots. So as you're running low, you can open the next one.
I'm not sure who would answer this, but are the chiefs or an election officer still required to enter the absentee ballot markings in the paper poll book?
I can take that one. So the procedures for the backup paper poll book are the same as ever. So we will be providing a close of books report and a final absentee list in the sheriff's envelope, along with instructions for how to mark the backup paper poll book. And what will need to happen is that someone will need to go and mark the backup paper poll book. And you can do that either the day before the election or first thing on election morning. Again, we'll provide instructions for that in the sheriff's envelope. We know they're no longer in the chief's notebook. We're going to provide them now with the close of books report in the sheriff's envelope.
Okay, thanks, Ravi. This next question is for Beth. We have a chief who still hasn't gotten a response from the polling location regarding pre-setup. What should they do?
I would like to know what polling location that is so that I can reach out. I guess I would also want to make sure that you're contacting the correct person that was submitted the survey and submitted the name of the individual that you should contact. Sometimes that does change. I do understand that, but please let me know. Go ahead and email me. Okay, yeah, that's pretty much. My email is beth.methfessel@fairfaxcounty.gov, so pretty easy. Thanks.
So if a chief and the polling place mutually agree that they are going to use a different entrance or a different voting room other than what's on the polling place info sheet, what does the chief need to do?
Well, I guess I'm going to take that one also. If it's mutually agreed upon by the facility coordinator, that it's fine. But please make sure that your polling place knows that you're going to be using another entrance. In fact, we have a situation at a school where they would like to use a different entrance that's more convenient to the voting room and want to post a sign on the entrance that voters are used to going through. But this new entrance is much more convenient. So we're going to post a sign. All of that is fine as long as it's been worked out ahead of time.
Okay, thanks, Beth. And I think our next question will go to Bushra. I haven't heard about doing same day registration on voting day. Would you be able to provide more information on that if possible? And when was this enacted, and would they be able to both register and vote or just registration?
So same-day registration will be in effect starting October 1st, 2022. So for this election, for the primary, June primary, we do not have same-day registration. Actually, the book was closed May 31st. More instruction, we are waiting for elect to send us more instruction and advisory on how to do the same-day registration. Also, probably we think that this will be provisional. So we are waiting, even us, we are waiting for more instruction from elect.
Someone wanted a clarification or just a clear answer. The poll pad should be turned off on Monday, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, next question is, can the collector officers go outside and take down signs?
Thanks, V. So I assume that this is referring to the end of the night. Again, I just want to clarify that there is a big difference between a collector officer and the officer who is assigned to monitor the drop box. They don't have to be the same person at all. The collector officer will be one of many officers who rotates through that duty during the day. So at the end of the night, the collector officer's first priority is to take down the drop box, count and secure the absentee ballot envelopes, and then receive the flash drives. If for some reason, let's say there aren't any ballots in the Dropbox, so they finish in 2 minutes and they're still waiting for the tapes to print, they of course can help with other tasks, but their priority is to get those items to us as quickly as possible. So maybe it's a good idea to have them pick up trash left up on the voting floor, as long as they are kind of within your sight. So you want to be able to call them back as soon as you're ready to go. So we don't want to send them too far away where you can't find them and where you end up waiting on them. But yes, they can help with other tasks as long as they're clear that their priority is getting those items back to us as quickly as possible.
A question about drop boxes. Previously, we had moved the drop box from outside to in the hallway near our voting room. Can we still keep it there, or does it have to go back outside?
So that's a great question. So drop boxes are now codified in Virginia law. They have been for coming up on 2 years now. And it's so important that you place the drop box at the location most convenient for voters, if at all possible. So that means what you want to do is, if you're able to do at your polling place the drop box outside the building entrance so it's visible to voters from outside. And then of course, an election officer, the individual who'd be the greeter, must be stationed there throughout the day, and that duty can be rotated among other officers. If your polling place doesn't allow for that, maybe you're in a very large building and the main entrance is very far away from the voting room, or some other issue with that, then next you would want to see if you could place the drop box just inside the building entrance. Maybe there's inclement weather on election day, and by putting it just inside the building entrance, that avoids rain or other things like that. If that's not possible, then you would place the drop box near the voting room entrance, ideally just outside the voting room entrance, or perhaps just inside, again, depending on your individual polling place. So again, the preference is place it as close to voters outside as possible within the constraints of your individual polling place.
Okay, thanks, Ravi. This next one's going to go to Bushra concerning ID requirements. This election, are we using the same ID requirements guided by the state rules?
Yes, the same ID requirement, and you have the list of the ID on your chief note. So if somebody show up without no ID, you can provide them statement of ID confirmation. They can fill it out and they can vote regularly.
This is a technical question, or it might be just a closing procedure questions. Do we also need to return the flash drives from the express votes?
I guess I can take that. There are no flash drives in the express votes.
And Tyrone, just to be clear, that was a change that you all were able to make last year, right? You were able to find a more efficient way of loading the information on the express vote?
That is correct.
Terrific, thank you.
Yep.
And I do see that we are winding down on our questions. So Jean and V, if we have some final questions, we can ask those. If anyone has not submitted a question that they want to do so, feel free to do that now. And otherwise we'll finish up in a few minutes.
Well, I'm hoping Kay is has her audio problems fixed, but a question is, I'm trying to decide, do I take my big car or do I take my small car to return election supplies on election night? Just about how much space am I looking at that I'm going to need in my car?
Well, I hope you can hear me this time. I'm not sure.
We can hear you great, Kay.
Okay. Kate and I are playing musical chairs for this. So anyhow, I would always go with a bigger car because you never know what else you're going to have. But this time you shouldn't have as much as you normally have. And if you look in your chief notebook under the return section, it'll tell you I believe it's 5 items that they have to return this time. It'll be their ballots, their voted ballots, their unvoted ballots, their kit. I have to stop and think what else it is myself. Robbie, can you help me remember?
Yeah, sure. It's also the poll pad cases and the windshield sign.
Windshield sign, yeah. So you shouldn't need the huge car, but I mean, better safe than sorry is what I say.
And we do have in the notebook on page 9.12, I don't know if you can actually see that or not. Yeah, maybe not. But on page 9.12 of the Chief's notebook, it now not only lists the items to return, but it has pictures of them as well. So you can see exactly what you have to return. So like Kay said, 5 items, the black rolling kit, the poll pad cases, of which there are now more than one, but each case is only the size of about a lunchbox, much smaller than they used to be. The number 3 box of voted ballots, the number 6 box of unvoted ballots, and then that windshield sign. There might be one more piece of paper we ask you to return, but that'll be it. So I don't know about anyone else, but for me, I have a pretty small car, compact car, and I can fit everything very comfortably in there.
Okay, thank you. One of the last questions on my end is for Tyrone. Tyrone, for co-located precincts, will chiefs get 2 sets of signs, one in each gray cart, or will they just get 1 set to share?
They both get their own set in each of the carts, and they can kind of work together on how they place them. If they have separate entrances and exits, they should set up their own signage to come and to go. But they both get a set apiece in their gray carts.
If I can add to that also, you know, they get separate kits and separate bags and everything and separate carts. So
yes,
they get their own precinct information.
And is it okay to assemble the drop box during the Monday or whenever you do your pre-election setup?
Yes, that's totally fine. Just make sure that you keep the box secure, but the actual assembling of the box you can do beforehand. Don't leave it out somewhere where somebody might think that the drop box is active. So as long as you have a place inside of your polling place that you can secure that, you can certainly assemble it during your pre-election day setup.
Thanks, Alina. This next question is for cleaning up the polling place. Please help remind me, do we have to return the rooms to their original setups, or will that be left to the custodial staff?
Robbie, do you want to do that or do you want me to?
Either way, Beth.
Okay. I would say that you should return the room to as close to its original condition as possible. It's just an appropriate and helpful thing to do, given that, once again, most of these sites are in schools and they will be starting summer programs immediately, probably on Wednesday. So it would be helpful if you did return everything as close to original as possible. Thanks.
And Beth, I just want to follow up on that. That I hope everyone leaves their rooms, you know, better than they received them. But also, it's so important that, correct me if I'm wrong, that polling places should not be using blue tape on gym floors and other things like that, because we have seen a lot of damage in the past and we've had to pay polling places to repair some of those things.
Exactly. And no tape at all really should be used on the floor. And that includes any, I don't think you're getting them, but those yellow adhesive arrows, the 6-foot distancing, I know we don't have that this time, but none of that it can be placed, especially on a gym floor. You can put certain tape down on tile, but once again, back to my answer, you have to remove that tape at the end of the day. And sometimes when it gets walked on, it's a lot harder to get off than it was going down. So be aware of that.
We had a question asking for clarification. How do you measure the 40-foot prohibited activities area? Is it from the front door of the polling place or from the room where the voting is actually taking place?
Kay can kind of give you an explanation of how much work has gone into you not having to take out a tape measure. But to answer the first part of the question, it is the entrance of the polling place. So that's why you have chalk that's outside. So you're going to mark that perimeter. And then the way that you mark that, I believe that comes, okay, you'll have to remind me if it's in the kit or the cart this time, but you don't have to do any measuring. You have kind of a pre-measured piece of rope with the markings on it, and that's how you can go to the entrance of your polling place and mark that around. And you can do that. You should do that on election morning. If you do it the day before, make sure that the chalk is still on there. You can do that anytime before voting or right as voting begins. You can mark that area outside. Okay, do you have any notes about where they can find that, the 40-foot prohibited area rope, the measurement tool? I think that Kay might be having some audio problems, but if you check in your supply list in your notebook, you should be able to find that, no problem.
Okay.
Sorry, V, I see that we got one question from someone asking, they're doing their site setup on Friday. Can they take their poll pads home and do the wireless update at home and bring it back on Tuesday? And you can't see it, but Tyrone is shaking his head, no, no, no. So I definitely want to make sure we address that question. Absolutely not. The procedures for this election are that the poll pads have been delivered in the gray cart to the polling place, and they stay at the polling place until voting ends and until the chief returns them. So absolutely not. Poll pads should not be taken home this election. And we've done everything we can to make the process to update them at the precinct as easy for you as possible. And if you do run into issues, rovers will have backup poll pads and other measures to support you.
This is a follow-on about the tapes, especially in the gyms. If we can't use the blue painter's tape or anything on the floor of the gym, how do we secure extension cords?
I can take that one. I think you should communicate with your rover about that. Talk to your rover. They have the benefit of seeing the voting room layout in lots of different polling places. They may have ideas about other ways that you can arrange the voting room so that voters and the path that voters take doesn't cross the way that cables are. I'm not sure, Beth or Tyrone, or if anyone else has anything they want to add to that. But we do understand it's a challenge, but you can definitely work with us and with your rover to find a way to fix that.
I would like to add to that, Robbie. The rovers have been instructed to carry extra extension cords. So even if they have to plan them around further out of the way so they don't be in a traffic area, they can secure that from their rovers on their setup. If they feel as though they need additional supply, they can call us or email me and contact the rover. We'll make sure that they get what they need for to make the setup correct by election morning.
Okay, thanks, Tyrone. This is the last question on our end, so we want to thank everyone for turning in their good questions. So the question is, in terms of the November election, will chiefs be of the same party as the governor?
Thanks for that question, V. So as you all may know, according to the Code of Virginia Electoral Policy, The chief and assistant chief in November general elections, the chief needs to be the same party as the sitting governor, and the assistant chief should be representing the next largest party from the last gubernatorial election. So what that means is in November, we'll be using officers representing the Republican Party as the chief in every precinct, and officers representing the Democratic Party as the assistant chief in every precinct. That's just the way that these codes and regulations go. And so we'll be working over the summer to identify and recruit individuals to step up into each of these roles. With that said, I do want to take a moment, especially as we wrap up here. I think we've closed out all of our questions, to say thank you to all of you that are serving as chiefs and assistant chiefs in this election. Many of you are very, very experienced chiefs, and we really appreciate you serving in this primary. We realize it's a little bit later in June than it usually is. You may have delayed your summer plans to serve with us, and we really do thank you for that. For our assistant chiefs, if I remember correctly, about half of our assistant chiefs are first timers this time. They're stepping up and serving as an assistant chief in a new experience, and we really appreciate you doing that. And our other half of assistant chiefs are very, very experienced chiefs who usually serve outside of the 8th Congressional District. Some of them are coming from 10, 20, 30 miles away because even though they're not a chief this election, they want to still serve and be of support. So in many cases, in many precincts, the chief and assistant chief will both have significant experience having served as a chief in the past. So I think that's a good note for us to close on. If Eric or Cheryl have anything else that they want to add, they're most welcome to do so, of course. But in short, all of us on the election officer team appreciate everything that you all do. And we appreciate that you're taking time out of your day to join us for this question and answer session. You all had some great questions, and I hope we provided you answers that answer those questions for you. If we didn't, feel free to call or email us, and we're happy to follow up accordingly. We will be here in the office both Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We'll be working, the hours necessary to support you in doing those things. Eric, Cheryl, is there anything else that you want to say before we dismiss our chiefs today?
The only thing I would like to say is, and I know each of us, including Kate Hanley, have already said it, but you can't say it enough. Thank you. Thank you for working such a long day. Thank you. I'm sorry that we don't pay you enough. We're working on that. Try and get our election officer pay increase because it hasn't increased in 9 years. But thank you. I know you do this as community service, and nothing could be more important. What you do is it's the fabric of our country. So I'm enjoying my new job, 3 months. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you very much, Eric. I think it's safe to say, even though it's only been 3 months, I think you've taken more actions in 3 months than some people could do in 3 years. So we're really excited about some of the things coming down the line. Cheryl, I see that you're unmuted. Was there anything you wanted to say? Maybe not, that's okay. So again, thank you to all of you for joining us today. We will be posting a recording of this question and answer session on our training website tonight. We hope you have a wonderful election. We hope you have wonderful election officers, and let us know if you need anything. So on behalf of our team here at the Fairfax County Office of Elections, we're so proud to work with each of you, and we're so thankful for each of you, just as Eric said. Thank you very much. Have a good weekend and have a great election.